Hello everyone, you're very welcome to this webinar, and in today's session we will examine the delivery and assessment of the Synoptic project in the subject area of health and fitness. Firstly though, a few introductions. My name is Kelly Johnson and I am a Provider Development Officer here at NCFE. My background is vocational education and I have 15 years of experience of working in the FE sector in various roles including a teacher, a curriculum leader and a curriculum operations manager. I specialise mainly in the subjects of sport, health and fitness, and I have educated young people from level 1 to foundation degree level, including A levels. My role is to support centres through the planning, onboarding and further CPD opportunities for NCFE qualifications, but in particular the VCERT qualifications, with a focus on promoting and advancing learning. I'm also joined today by Phil Tolman, who is the lead external quality assurer for sport and travel. Phil has been a sport EQA here at NCFE for 20 years and a lead EQA since 2017. He's very passionate about supporting centres and ensuring that learners achieve the best possible outcome. The plan for this webinar is to firstly provide you with a summary of preparing for the Synoptic project, including accessing the Synoptic project brief and our approach to awarding for this academic session. We'll examine the Synoptic project, in particular, an overview and the structure of the tasks. We'll also include tips for delivery and sample learner work to show the breakdown of grades. We'll also look at the marking, assessment, along with feedback will be explained, including appropriate and inappropriate feedback and how you can make your feedback more effective. We'll also explain the IQA process and the documentation that you can use, including the grading calculator, submitting your grades to the portal and resubmissions. Lastly, we'll explain the EQA support that is available to you and your centres and the process for EQA reviews. If you do have any questions, there is an opportunity to contact either myself or Phil on our email addresses that will be shown on the last slide. So let me begin with a summary of preparing for the Synoptic project, including our approach to awarding and assessment this year and some information about the portal. Firstly, I'll provide a quick overview of the controlled assessment, that is the Synoptic project. The Synoptic project contributes 60% to the final VCERT qualification grade and can only be completed in the year of certification. The project is set by NCFE and the tasks are unable to be altered in any way. It is internally graded by centres, but NCFE will perform and externally quality assurance check the evidence. The full content from the specification in the Synoptic project. Learners to be covered prior to beginning. Learners will have to be booked onto the controlled assessment in order to access the brief via the portal. And a different Synoptic project is usually released every December. And learners have one opportunity to resubmit their work. Now, this overview is when the internal assessment is business as usual. That is, the internal assessment is set in a non-COVID-19 academic year. But please do note that adaptations are in place for 2021-22, and I'm going to go into more detail about these on the next slide. So on this slide, I'm going to briefly explain our approach to awarding for this session. We have updated our assessment variation process to allow centres to use additional test centre locations. We've adapted our assessments so they can be delivered in line with public health guidelines. All relevant qualification content will still be delivered and assessment criteria met. To further support centres, significant adaptations have been made to the conditions of the VCERT Technical Award Synoptic project this year. We have adapted the delivery and completion conditions so that it can now be completed by learners remotely where required. We have removed the requirement to complete it within a set number of hours, and we have removed the requirement of completion under controlled conditions. We have also brought forward the release of the Synoptic project brief so centres can plan their own delivery timescales around their own delivery plan. This year it has been released early and it was released on the 1st of November, and learners need to be registered and booked onto the controlled assessment so it can be viewed and accessed. We have also removed the timescales around the submission deadline. but there is a deadline for having the final grades onto the portal, which is the 27th of May 2022. Learners will still be able to have a resubmission opportunity, but this will be managed internally by the centre. Learners should have the opportunity to undertake 2 submissions, so a first submission and a resubmission, but it is the final grade that should only be entered onto the portal. Grades for a learner's first submission do not need to be entered on the portal, but assessment records should be kept up to date to provide a full audit trail of the resubmission. The EQA review deadline is before the 31st of July 2022 to allow for results to be confirmed by the end of July for performance tables. So as I've already said, the Synoptic project brief is now live and it was released on the 1st of November in line with our approach to awarding an assessment for this academic session. To access and view the Synoptic project brief, you need to go to your qualification specification page on QualHub. Then, if you go to the login section and select portal, and you will need a portal login to access this, and if you don't have one, it is usually your exams officer that can arrange this for you. Then, if you click on bookings, and as I've said, your learners must be booked onto the controlled assessment in order to access and view it. And then once your learners are booked onto the controlled assessment, it can then be viewed and accessed in View Controlled Assessment. If you do require any further support, please do check out our portal support guide or contact our customer support team who can help with this if anything is needed by contacting either customer support at ncfe.org.uk or by telephone on 0191 239 8000. I'm now going to hand over to Phil, who will talk you through in more detail the adaptations for this academic session for health and fitness.
Hello, I'm Phil Tolman. I'm the lead EQA for sports, exercise and fitness. I'm just going to run through some of the adaptations that apply to our area. They're mainly based around the adaptations that we had in place for award in 2020. So one of the key things and a key theme of today is about working with your EQA to ensure that you get the best outcome for both you as a centre and for your learners. And it's really important that you work with your EQA as part of the adaptations process, because the implementation of any adaptations will be monitored through our external quality assurance process to support the validation of any adaptations that you use, ensuring that you're only using adaptations when required and that those agreed as part of our awarding. When adaptations are applied unnecessarily, centres may be given an action or downgraded as part of their EQA review. Therefore, be sure with your allocated EQA on the application of any adaptations that you may wish to use. So obviously, the key theme is all must be agreed. So, and then if you think about for those who've accessed the Synoptic project, a key feature of this year's project is about creating a 4-week health and fitness program for a member of your household or with another learner. So in the past, it's under the controlled environment. It's always been with somebody within your group, but the adaptations enables you and allows you to maybe select somebody from your household or somebody outside of your school environment. So one of the key elements of removing the control is that assessments this year can be completed remotely, including the use of technology. So if you want to do, say, record a fitness test or a professional discussion, you can use the technology. There's a lot of new digital ways of assessing now, but not only can you do that remotely, but you can also use that type of evidence within the school environment.
Thanks for that, Phil. I'm now going to talk you through our sample and past Synoptic projects that are available on qualhub.co.uk, and then Phil will provide further details on the structure and an overview of the tasks for health and fitness. This next slide is an example Synoptic project from the Health and Fitness VCERT qualification. And as I've said, past and sample projects can be found on your qualification specification page on QualHub. Now, this particular Synoptic project example had a scenario of being an apprentice fitness instructor in a gym who had to work with clients to review their current fitness levels. And the brief included tasks like creating, administering, and evaluating a lifestyle questionnaire, as well as showing understanding of what is meant by muscular strength and speed, and to find ways of testing these and then carrying out those tests. The evidence produced usually has a range of options available unless stated otherwise, such as leaflets, posters, written reports, presentations, etc. But most centres now do opt for some form of digital evidence. The learner log is something the learners must complete during their project, and they are to keep a record of the different activities they did and the resources, as well as the time they dedicated to it. And at the end, they will have to evaluate their project too. This will allow learners to achieve assessment objective 5, which is to manage and evaluate their project. The learner log can also be found in the assessment materials tab on your qualification specification page on QualHub. So prior to assessing the Synoptic project, and sometimes even before beginning the Synoptic project, you may find it useful to look at sample portfolios, which contain learner work that we have also available on QualHub. On the qualification page on the assessment materials tab, this is where you'll find some of the example work that has been graded at different levels. This can give you a good idea of what the different grades would look like. In these documents, you will find the evidence produced by the learner, the feedback the assessor has given, and the comments from an external quality assurer justifying why it achieved that grade. I'm now going to hand back over to Phil, who will provide further details on the structure and an overview of the tasks for health and fitness for this year.
I'm going to give you some advice and guidance related to the delivery of the health and fitness programme. It's really important that, as indicated by Kelly, that the learner should not, or your learner should not be undertaking the Synoptic assessments until all the learning outcomes from both Unit 1 and Unit 2 have been delivered. This is to ensure that learners have not been penalised and then can complete all aspects of the Synoptic project successfully. As part of the delivery, learners should be fully prepared to complete the project independently. It's really important. This is, even though the controls have been removed, this doesn't change the element that once all the teaching and learning has been completed and the learners are provided with the project, that they go away in their different forms and then they complete that independently. So if you think about when you're delivering the programme, so a key element is the questionnaire this year, so and the devise of the training programme. So you need to ensure with all your teaching and all the delivery that learners fully understand how to provide a general overview of the intended goals, including consideration to rest days, food diaries, understand the use and how to use PARQs, the use of session cards. And then a really key element, a question that keeps occurring, is that we're not looking for learners to go to visit a local leisure centre or visit a local gym and collect a learner lifestyle question. We're really encouraging you as assessors to get the learners to devise their own lifestyle questionnaires. So as part of your delivery, you must ensure that they are fully prepared and able to do this. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about marking and assessment. So when it comes to assessing the Synoptic project, it should be done holistically. You'll be judging the project as a whole, and it will be assessed against each of the assessment objectives. And there's an example there. Descriptors have been written for each assessment objective, and assessors will use the grading descriptors to determine the banding decision for each assessment objective. The learners will also be able to see how these grading descriptors, as they have been arrived as they are on the Synoptic project brief. There are 4 bands that can be awarded: not yet achieved, band 1, band 2, and band 3. Here's an example of learner work. This was last year's, this summer's Synoptic project is about muscular endurance. And if you can see from this piece of work that it's far from perfect. There are, the odd flaw in, but the centre and we agreed as an EQA team that this had met the requirements for band 3. And like I've indicated, there are a flaw related to some of the cramping and the pulling muscles when you do exercises that impact, but the rest of it is a really good piece of work. So, and the learner has considered a wide range of concepts, principles, skills, and techniques. And the major strength of this piece of work, if you look through it, is that the learner has demonstrated the ability and the understanding to apply it to the information related to muscle endurance to a variety of different sports.
Thanks for that, Phil. I'd now like to talk you through some of the general guidance when giving feedback and the documentation that is available to support you. Phil will then talk you through some of the more specific guidance on feedback and resubmissions for this year. So when giving feedback to your learners, there is some general guidance. For each of the 5 assessment objectives, you should let the learner know what band they got. You should reference the grading descriptors when giving feedback. So for example, for assessment objective 1 about recalling knowledge and showing understanding, you would be mentioning their use of key terminology and accurate use of knowledge in their project. It is good practice to focus your comments on what the learner has done well. Also, make your comments general rather than overly focused and specific to parts of the Synoptic project. And the comments should encourage the learners to self-regulate and be self-critical. And your feedback cannot give explicit instructions. For example, you can't say things like you need to describe X and explain the importance of Y. So do keep the comments general, as it is meant to be and a holistic view. Again, as it is an holistic view, you can't give feedback on specific sections. So comments like in section 1, you need to include information about X wouldn't be appropriate. And the final point ties in with the previous 2 points. You should avoid listing all the negative points for the learners to address too. And you can look at the samples portfolios to get some ideas about the comments, and do check the Synoptic Project Delivery Guide for additional information. On the slide here, this is an example document for the assessor to give feedback to the learner. And the feedback can be given to the learners after the EQA visit has occurred. And there is another option available, which is better suited to the Synoptic project, which is in the grading calculator on QualHub. So on the 3rd sheet of the grading calculator called Learners are the 5 assessment objectives and bandings. You can copy and paste this into a different spreadsheet or Word document and use it for giving feedback. You can circle the relevant banding they've achieved and write your comments for each assessment objective. Again, these are only suggestions and you don't have to use them. I'm now going to hand back over to Phil, who will talk you through some more specific guidance on feedback and resubmissions.
Prior to organising and putting this webinar together, we had a brainstorming activity of the EQA health and fitness team, and these are the people that you'll be working with as part of your review and a part of your support mechanism that's in place. And we looked at the type of things that we'd like to see you do to help support us and to make things easier for yourself. And some of the key ones I put on here under helpful hints. So the first one is though that it's important as an assessors that you annotate the work to show where the assessment objectives have been met. And not only will this help yourself when putting the grades together and the grading calculator and how you've arrived at that grade, it will also help your IQA at centre to see how you can arrive at the assessment decision, and it will also support the EQA in seeing where you've made the grading decision. Another key area is that as part of the assessment, it's important that you provide, as part of your review, a fully completed grading calculator so that we are able to establish what grade the learner has arrived at, how you've arrived at the different grades across the different assessment objectives, and highlighted that this must be made available to the EQA as part of the sample, so it's a requirement of the qualification that you send it to us. And then the last point is that IQA commentary should be used to revise assessor grading and feedback before returning work to learner. So you don't give the work back to learner and the IQA process takes place. The key is once you mark that learner work, that you give it to your IQA centre. He then reviews it to be either to return to learner or then maybe ask for you to make some kind of revision to that grade. And I'll now hand you over to Kelly to give you a bit more information about the IQA process.
Thanks, Phil. That was very informative. So over the next few slides, I'm now going to talk to you about the quality assurance process, and I'm going to start with internal quality assurance. The internal quality assurance stage is the final check of the Synoptic project, as Phil was saying, and the internal quality assurer should be able to correctly assess and moderate the work, so therefore they need to be knowledgeable on the content, competent on the grading system so that they can challenge grading decisions and not be involved with the teaching of the learners. And if it is your first year of delivery, then we do recommend an IQA sample of 50% of the learners. The sample should contain a wide range of learners, grades, assessors, and so on. And after the first year of sampling, this can be reduced. And while there is no specific number on the size of the sample, it should be large enough to give the IQA a picture of the work that has been completed. So we would recommend between 20 and 40% sample. Grades can be given to the learners after this IQA has been completed, but you should inform them that this may change based on the EQA's visit or review. And when it is business as usual, those grades would usually need to be submitted to us by the 31st of March of each year. But as I've already said, there are adaptations in place this year for submitting grades for this academic year, as we have discussed earlier. Your EQA will sample the work and the assessment decision will either be agreed and banked or rejected. And then your EQA will discuss their findings, give you an action plan, and then the new grades will be banked for those learners. Following the EQA review or visit, you can then give your learners feedback and they are entitled to one resubmission. And when it is business as usual, learners are to use the same Synoptic project. They have another 21 hours in supervised sessions, and the work is then assessed and internally quality assured again. And then the resubmission grade is to be entered onto the portal and be with us by the 31st of May. But like I've said, for this academic session and in line with our approach to awarding and assessment, the adaptations confirm that resubmissions should be managed internally within the centre and the assessment records should be kept up to date to provide a full audit trail of the resubmission. The first submission grades are not to be entered onto the portal, and it actually is the final grade that should be submitted and entered onto the portal by the 27th of May 2022. So Phil has already mentioned the grading calculator, and to determine the grade achieved for the Synoptic project, you can use the grading calculator which is on QualHub. On here, you can place the learner's name and place the band they achieved against each of the assessment objectives. This will then calculate the grade that will be achieved for the Synoptic project. And as you can see from this example on the slide, you can see that learner A, the bands that they achieved were a 2, 2, 2, 1 and a 2, giving them an overall grade of a level 1 distinction in the Synoptic project. Whereas learner B got 2s for every assessment objective and they got a level 2 merit overall. This just shows how important assessment objective 4 is in relation to its weighting. So the only assessment objective that learner B did better on, but they actually jumped up 2 grades. And one final thing, before you can let the learners know their grades, the work needs to go through the internal quality assurance process as discussed on the previous slide. Again, I just want to reiterate here that for this academic session, once learners have been given their feedback, they are permitted to one resubmission of their Synoptic project. And the resubmission for this year will involve, again, the same Synoptic project, and the learner will use the feedback that's been given to make improvements, and they don't have to start from scratch. They can add or make changes to the previous work they've completed for the Synoptic project. And for this year, they are permitted unlimited hours to complete their resubmission. Once the learners have completed their work, it would be marked again, an internal quality assurance check performed, and then an external quality assurance review or visit arranged. And the deadline for the resubmission grades this year, as I've just said, but so it is definitely at the forefront of your mind, is the 27th of May 2022. And again, the EQA review must be completed before the 31st of July 2022. So in summary, for this academic session, learners are to complete the Synoptic project, and we have removed the requirement to complete it within a set number of hours. When the learners have completed the Synoptic project evidence, the assessor will mark it against the grading descriptors and fill in the grading calculator. The IQA will check the work and provide feedback to the assessor. Learners are given their feedback and are then permitted a resubmission opportunity, but this will be managed internally by the centre. Grades for a learner's first submission do not need to be entered onto the portal, but assessment records should be kept up to date to provide a full audit trail of the resubmission. The final resubmission grades are to be submitted via the portal by the 27th of May 2022, and the EQA review deadline again is before the 31st of July 2022 to allow for results to be confirmed by the end of July for performance tables. The EQA will then check the work and either agree and bank the grades or reject the grading decisions and provide a supportive action plan. You can submit unit grades by selecting grading and then submit unit grades from the portal menu. You can search for your learners to submit unit grades using batch, forename, surname, centre learner reference, or the NCFE learner number. Click to select the learners that you would like to submit grades for. Please note, unit grades should only be submitted once the work has been assessed and a sample has been internally quality assured. Once this has been done, please submit the applicable grades for each learner. The unit grades will be stored until your EQA banks them following a successful quality assurance review. Please check the information that you're going to submit that it's correct, as once the grades are submitted, you're unable to make any further amendments. You then select the learners that you would like to submit grades for and select Next. When you select a unit, you get the option to select a grade for each learner. When you have finished selecting grades, tick the declaration and complete the full name of your internal quality assurer or IQA before selecting Submit. Confirmation of a successful unit grade submission will then appear. Please do save or print a copy of this screen for your records. If you require any further support, again, do check out our portal user guide or contact our customer support team who can help with this if it's needed by using the contact details previously given. I'm now going to hand back to Phil, who will explain the external quality assurance and the process for this academic session.
I would now like to talk to you about the final check, which is the EQA support and reviews. In this slide, I'll give you an overview of the EQA process and how we can support and help you. So the NCFE EQA process is amongst the most helpful of any other awarding bodies, and I come from somebody who's lots of experience of working for a variety of awarding bodies. So, and we've got like a team at the moment of 14 external quality assurers for sport, and they are so passionate about supporting centres, and some of you have had the opportunity already over the years of working with them. So, but yeah, the key is it's a supportive process to make sure that you and your learners achieve the best outcome. So if you require any further information about and how to prepare for an EQA visit and review. So you can go on the Qual Hub that's highlighted there. In the delivery support tab, we have a section regarding EQA reviews, which may want to help you prepare for one. So that once you've registered your learners, you should then be assigned an EQA. So then immediately once you've assigned an EQA, then you can start having that kind of dialogue, whether it be about adaptions, or whether it be about review dates, whether it just needs general support. You can have that sort of kind of conversation with your EQA. You're entitled to 2 free visits from your EQA. As I've indicated earlier, it's worth contacting them as soon as you are able, and we've got the name so that you can consider putting in a date in the diary review, so that it fits in both with your needs as a centre. So for this year, it's really exciting that we have now got the opportunity to go back to doing some face-to-face reviews. So we've been working remotely for the past 18 months, but if you as a centre feel that you would benefit from a face-to-face review, your EQA can accommodate that. So it might be that you might think that the support would be better through a face-to-face, that you can have that conversation. So as long as you provide the necessary paperwork in terms of risk, ensuring that commitments are being taken into account as part of the visit, then that is certainly a consideration. You can also still have your visit remote. You might only have a small portfolio of learners. You might be quite confident with what you're doing, then you can have the revisitors remote. So the EQA review deadline is before the 31st of July. Then this is by the end of July for your performance tables. So some of the key areas that the EQA will be looking at as part of the review includes your EQA process, some portfolios, centre policies, staff CVs, and CPD records. But prior to the visit, whether it be remote or by visit, you'll have to be fully aware of exactly the kind of information that you'll need to have available and to generate as part of the review. So obviously a massive part of the review is the assessment decisions related to the Synoptic project and the IQA process to support them decisions. So prior to the visit, the EQ will let you know what learners he plans to sample. So you'll be looking at your sampling plan prior, so you should be able to be well prepared for the visit. Once the review has taken place, the EQ will either agree with the assessment decisions, and the grades will be submitted and be banked on the portal. If they have to reject the grades, so that could be either too harshly or too leniently, the EQA will have a full and open and honest discussion with you and give you some actions via a very, very supportive action plan, and then the new grades will be banked for those learners. If the grades are changed by the EQA, this does not affect the learner capacity to resubmit. After the EQA review has taken place, feedback can be given to the learners, and they are entitled to 1 resubmission following that review. For the academic year 21-22, the EQA will be only looking at final submission in this session, and that's it. So any resubmissions will be managed by yourself. So some key tips I've indicated earlier to always ensure that you can fully have that full discussion about adaptations. Don't try to implement your own adaptations, so any ideas related to adaptations or anything that you might implement or any that you change, you make have that full discussion with your EQA, and then once you've got his approval, then you can implement that EQA. Like as indicated earlier, if you don't have that agreement and you go and do your own thing, then you are risking your grades being changed. So for this year, for the first time, there's a possibility if you want, you can have like an a review of any first submissions in sort of a very supportive capacity. They'll come, they'll discuss very general information around assessment and AQA, and look at the more sort of the detail related to your management of the programme and some of your CPD and resources. Once the work has been assessed and graded and early quality assured, the grade should be banked on the portal, and this will enable the EQA to select the appropriate sample and the review to take place. As indicated throughout the presentation, make sure you have regular dialogue with your EQA about learner's progress, as this will help with planning and agreeing a date for the review to take place. A continual dialogue with an EQA is a really important part of the process. That it also indicated if you want any help, any support, you can get in touch with either myself or your EQA. If you've not registered any learners and you still need some help and support, then you can contact myself at NCFA.
We have now reached the end of the webinar, and I do hope that you are now feeling more knowledgeable and self-assured about the delivery and assessment of the Synoptic project for health and fitness, both when business as usual and for this academic session. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Phil for supporting this webinar today. He's been a real star. If you do have any further questions after the webinar, then please do contact your EQA. And as Phil said, remember your learners need to be registered to have an EQA allocated to your centre. Alternatively, like Phil said, please do feel free to contact him at philcoleman@ncfe.org.uk, and he is always more than happy to help and support you. Also, you can contact me directly using my email, kellyjohnson@ncfe.org.uk, and if I'm unavailable, our general email is provider.development@ncfe.org.uk. And finally, do visit our website for more information on our VCERT Technical Awards. Lastly, as I have also, on this slide, I've also included some of the useful links for you to refer to if you require further information and support. These links include our approach to awarding an assessment, the adaptation blueprint, and the quality assurance policy for 2021-2022. Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and on behalf of everyone here at NCFE, we wish you a safe and successful year.